When a 16-year-old girl found a dying stranger on a street corner the morning of her final exam, the test that would determine her entire future, she had seconds to decide. Save herself, or save someone she'd never met. What she chose changed 3 lives forever. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world you're tuning in from. We love seeing how far our stories travel. Ruby Rhodes stood frozen on Hartwell Street at exactly 7:22 a.m. on a Tuesday morning that would fracture her life into before and after. Her backpack hung heavy on her shoulders, stuffed with 2 pencils, a calculator, and the student ID that was supposed to get her into the most important exam of her 16 years. But none of that mattered now, because slumped against a brick wall of Patterson Corner store, barely visible in the early morning shadows, was a woman who couldn't breathe. Ruby's phone screen glowed in her trembling hand. 38 minutes until her final comprehensive exam started. 38 minutes to get across Cedar Grove, Illinois, board the bus, and make it to Lincoln Heights Academy before the doors closed. No exceptions. No makeups. Miss this test? Repeat the entire junior year. Watch all her friends graduate without her. The woman's head lifted slightly, and even in the dim light, Ruby could see the swelling, the pale, clammy skin, the way her chest heaved with shallow, desperate gasps. Help! The word came out as barely a whisper. Please! Ruby's father's voice echoed in her head, the same warning he'd given her since she was old enough to walk to school alone. Keep your head down. Stay safe. Don't get involved in things that aren't your business. Every logical thought screamed at her to keep walking, to pretend she hadn't seen anything, to protect the future she'd worked so hard to build. But the woman's eyes found hers, pleading, terrified. Ruby's feet moved before her brain could stop them. She dropped to her knees beside the woman. Up close, she could see this wasn't just any woman. The expensive suit, the designer handbag, the diamond earrings catching the streetlight. This was someone important. Someone who should have people to help her. But right now, she had no one except a 16-year-old girl who was supposed to be on a bus. What happened? What's wrong? Ruby's voice cracked with panic. The woman's lips moved, barely forming words. 17 minutes into a test she'd spent months preparing for. 17 minutes past the point of no return. The paramedics arrived like a cavalry in blue uniforms. They moved with efficient calm, asking Ruby questions. She answered automatically while her brain tried to process what she'd just done, what she'd just lost. As they loaded the woman onto a stretcher, now stabilized and breathing normally, one of the paramedics, a woman with kind eyes and graying hair, squeezed Ruby's shoulder. You saved her life, sweetheart. That was textbook anaphylaxis response. How old are you? 16. 16. The paramedic shook her head in amazement. Most adults would have kept walking. You're something special. You know that. Ruby didn't feel special. She felt like she'd just thrown away her entire future for a stranger. The woman on the stretcher, now with an oxygen mask covering half her face, reached out and grabbed Ruby's hand one more time. Her eyes were clearer now, focused and intense. Thank you, she whispered behind the mask. You saved my life. What's your name? Ruby Rhodes. Ruby, the woman's eyes filled with tears. Ruby Rhodes. I'm never going to forget that name. She started walking home, each step heavier than the last. The maple trees lining Hartwell Street had leaves just beginning to turn autumn colors. Ruby had always loved this time of year, the promise of change, of seasons shifting, of new beginnings. Now it just felt like endings. The walk home gave her too much time to think, too much time to replay every moment of the last hour, too much time to calculate exactly what she'd sacrificed. She thought about the polynomial equation she'd memorized, the essay structure she'd practiced, the 3 all-nighters she'd pulled in the past week alone, reviewing every possible topic that might appear on that exam. She thought about her father, Wesley, who worked 60-hour weeks at the warehouse so she could have a chance at college, who came home exhausted every night but still helped her study at their tiny kitchen table, who believed she was going to be the one to break them out of the cycle of barely making ends meet. What was she going to tell him? Dad, I threw away everything we've worked for. I missed the exam. I'm going to repeat junior year. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The small apartment complex where they lived came into view. It wasn't much. Chip paint, a parking lot full of old cars, windows covered with mismatched curtains. But it was home. That's horrible, Ruby whispered. That's reality, Mila said. We live in a world where people are so focused on their own lives, their own problems, their own schedules, that they forget to see each other. And I was going to die because of it. She reached over and took Ruby's hand. But then you didn't keep walking. You had more to lose than anyone else who passed me that morning. You had a test that would determine your entire future. You had every excuse to keep going, but you stopped anyway. I couldn't not stop. I know Dad always told me to keep my head down, to not get involved. And I tried to listen to that voice, but there was this other voice that was louder, and it kept saying, what if that was your mom? What if someone had walked past her when she needed help? And I just couldn't. Wesley's eyes filled with tears for what felt like the 100th time that year. Your mother would be so proud of you. Of the woman you're becoming. She'd be proud of all of us, Mila added. Of Wesley for raising a daughter who understands what really matters. Of Ruby for having the courage to act on it. And maybe, if she's watching, she'd be happy that her family found someone else to love who loves them just as much. It was the first time Mila had acknowledged what was growing between her and Wesley, and the words hung in the air like a promise. Wesley reached over and took her hand. Sarah would like you. She'd appreciate that you see Ruby for who she really is, not just for what she can achieve. I do see her, Mila said softly. I see a young woman who's going to change the world, not because of grades or scholarships or any of the things we measure success by, but because she already understands what took me 35 years to learn, that we're all connected, that saving one person saves us all. Ruby cried most of the way to Northwestern the next day. Wesley drove her in the used car Mila had helped him buy, reliable and safe, perfect for a single dad who didn't need flash but did need to know his daughter could call him if she broke down. Mila followed in her own car, unwilling to miss this moment. They moved Ruby into her dorm room, a space that felt impossibly large after the small bedroom she'd grown up in. Other students were arriving with their families, unloading SUVs full of expensive furniture and decorations.